Well, welcome back, my 7th grade YouTubers. So, this is a pretty special YouTube because I know that you guys already know on Friday, March the 23rd, you guys are going to be having a quiz on angle measurement. And we've been studying shapes and angles and degrees at this point. Well, here's a word problem or a problem in the real world that we're going to deal with today. What we have here is we have two missing measurements. You guys already know at this point, this small letter M stands for the word measurement. And we're looking for the measurement of this angle, X degrees, and we're looking for the measurement of this angle, Y degrees. So, if we're given this real world problem or diagram, what we have here is we have this special symbol. Now, you guys already know that this is the right angle, which is another word for complementary. And all complementary angles, we already know, are congruent to 90 degrees. So what we could actually do is, we could actually just put 90 degrees here just to remind us about 90-degree angles. Now, we've also learned about something called vertical angles and supplementary angles and adjacent angles. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to use our different types of angles to try to solve for X and for Y. So what we're going to do is, we're going to go ahead and list everything that we know before we actually solve for these things that we don't know. So we already knew that this complementary right angle was 90 degrees. But we already know something also about vertical angles. Vertical angles are created when two lines intersect and cross each other. Well, this could be our first line, and we'll call this line number 1. And this will be called our second line, and we'll call this line number 2. These two lines are crossing each other, and I'll put right here where they're crossing. They're intersecting at this point right there that I just listed right here. So when they cross each other, they create vertical angles. Now, vertical angles are on opposite sides of each other. So this 90-degree angle is on the opposite side of this angle, and we're calling this angle Y. Or already, some of you guys probably have already figured out what the measurement of angle Y is. But before I continue, let me list some other things that we also know. We also know that this line, and we were calling this line right here, line number 2, we know that any straight line has a total of 180 degrees. So if I were to measure on a protractor, taking out this protractor here, and I were measuring the number of degrees from one end of this line to the other end of the line here, what I would know is that it's a total of 180 degrees. Well, this also has a special name, and the special name is supplementary angle. So we can actually list that right now, that this line number 2 has a total of 180 degrees. And I want to write that nice and clear for you guys, so I'm going to put it in a different color just so it sticks out a little bit more. This is everything you know about this supplementary straight line number 2. Now, the other thing you know is that this is called the line segment because there's no arrow tip right here on this point where it intersects with line number 1 and number 2. This line segment creates two adjacent angles. Now, the word adjacent means next to. That means that this angle and this angle are next to each other. So right here we have angle 30 degrees, and we have another angle, but it says that it's 4 times the quantity, 2x minus 1. And these two angles are next to each other, and they share the same line segment right here that I'm pointing to. That's about everything we know about this diagram. So now that we listed everything that we know, we could probably find angle measurement X degrees and angle measurement Y degrees pretty simple at this point. And this is definitely going to be on your quiz for this coming Friday, March the 23rd. Now, here's what you're going to do now. What you want to do is you want to set up everything in terms of congruency. And another word for congruency in geometry is similar to or approximately equal. So this 90 degrees is congruent to this Y degrees because they're vertical angles. So I'm going to set that up right now. I'm going to say that angle measurement Y is congruent, and this is our symbol for congruency, to 90 degrees. And if I have to list the reason why, it's because these two angles here that I'm pointing at, they're vertical angles. So I'll put vertical angles here. And now we know what the measurement of angle Y is. And we know why it's congruent to 90 degrees as well. We're not just saying this is 90 degrees. We're saying this is 90 degrees and it's congruent to this value because we can actually justify it. We can explain why. Vertical angles are created when line number 2 and line number 1 intersect at this point. And vertical angles are always congruent and they're on opposite sides of each other. This is at the upper left corner and this is on the lower right corner. So they're total opposites of each other. This right here would be the upper left. And this would be the lower right. They're exact opposites of each other. Upper, lower, left, right. These vertical angles are congruent, and that's how we know why the measure of angle Y is congruent to 90 degrees. Now, this is the one where most people will have a lot of trouble, finding the measurement of angle X. But let's use what we know. We know all supplementary lines are 180 degrees. So this green line right here, line number 2, and I traced on top of green here, we know the whole thing is equal to 180 degrees. Well, we were already given that this angle right here was already complementary. It was already 90 degrees. So if this straight line has this part of the angle 90 degrees, what do you guys think this other part right here, where the 30 degrees and the 4 times 2x plus 1, what do you think this must be? Well, let's think here. If we only have 180 degrees total, 180 minus 90 degrees, this means that we only have 90 degrees left over. So this means that this must be another 90 degrees right here. So what do we know about these two adjacent angles? We know if we add them up, they must have a sum of the other 90 degrees. And we can use that now. We can use this value right here, and we can say, okay, if I have 30 degrees plus 4 times 2x minus 1, if we add these two angles up right here, this must be congruent to how many degrees? It must be congruent to the other 90 degrees that I know are left over for this straight line. Well, we've already studied how to isolate a variable. And we're going to go ahead and isolate this variable to find out what the angle X is congruent to. Step 1, all of this is review of the past. We're going to use actually the distributive property. The distributive property is what comes first. So we're going to distribute the number 4, and we're going to multiply 4 times 2x, and we're going to get 8x. Now we're going to multiply 4 times this negative 1 and get negative 4. Step 2, let's go ahead right now, and we're going to combine like terms. Now we've already learned what this phrase means. It means that we combine things by adding them together with other things that look like them. That means they have the same variable or they don't have the same variable. So we're going to add this 30 to this negative 4. We're going to add the 30 and the negative 4 together because they both don't have a variable. This is going to give you 8x plus 26 is equal to 90 degrees. And this right here, we can now solve for what x is using this equation. Well, let's go ahead and move our work a little bit so we have more space. Let's put 8x plus 26 is equal to 90. What we're trying to do now is we're trying to isolate the variable, and we can't forget, we always have to balance the equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 26 because I'm going to use something called the inverse operation. I'm going to do the opposite of adding 26. And now I have to balance the equation by subtracting 26 from 90. So I'm going to subtract 26 here. Now 26 take away 26. I've almost isolated this variable. You see, I want to get 1x instead of 8x. Now, if I subtract 90 from, or the 26 from the 90 right here, I'm going to get a total of 64. Now, don't forget, these are degrees, so some people like to go ahead and put the degree symbol there. And I think it's a pretty smart thing to put that degree symbol there too, so you don't forget. Now that we know 90 take away 26 is 64, we're going to divide by 8 and balance the equation so we can isolate the variable. This is going to give us that x is congruent to a total of 8 degrees. Now, we should be able to check this answer. You see, if this is really 90 degrees here, 4 times 2 times this x, which is 8 degrees, minus 1, this quantity right here should be equal to 60 degrees. Because 60 plus 30 would make all of this where my hand is at, it would equal to 90. So we want to check to see if this really does equal 60 degrees. So what we're going to do is, now that we've isolated the variable, we're going to go ahead and check our work to see if this is actually true. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this value out, and we're going to see if this really is 60 degrees. So what we're going to do is, we're going to take our value of 4 times 2 times 8 minus 1, and we're going to see if this really equals 60 degrees. Well, let's go ahead and multiply 2 times 8, that's 16. So 16 minus 1, that's 15. And we're going to multiply 4 times 15, and sure enough, that definitely equals 60 degrees. So if this value x is equal to 8 degrees, 2 times 8 is 16, 16 minus 1 is 15, and 4 times the 15 really gave you 60 degrees. So 60 degrees plus 30 degrees, that's what we thought. We thought this angle here should be equal to 90, because 90 plus this other 90 makes this whole straight line 180 degrees. So now we know we're right. Well, if you've really watched this video, because I'm going to ask you guys to watch this video, here's the secret password. But don't tell anybody else, because this is how you're going to check that you actually did this homework and you actually watched this video. The secret password for this video, if you guys are ready, it's going to be vertical angles. That's the secret phrase. So I want you guys to write down this password. And if you write down this password, I'm going to know that you watched this video. Well, you guys take care, my 7th grade YouTubers, and definitely be ready for a question like this coming up on your quiz this Friday, March the 23rd. I'll catch you guys later. See you in class.